Learn a little something. Take a lesson. Learn it all.
Welcome back, guys. Today we talk about Warlock, Kabam's most interesting looking and zaniest champion yet. He was granted for a short time to the CCP for this review, but is he worth your time? And yeah, there's a song.
You can't bring your poison to my soul. Won't ever make me bleed. I'm protected by immunity, but when we touch, when you try to break down my defenses, your healing stops and the virus takes you over. I'm a contagious agent, yeah, and I'm infectious to your soul. You can't escape it, no. But now the technovirus has you and it won't let go.
Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that song, and if you want to hear more, make sure you check out the card up on the top right, or check out the description below to hear the other songs from the other hero spotlights. Now, Warlock is absolutely awesome. His prestige is ridiculously high, his animation rocks, his utility is amazing, and he should definitely be part of any roster needing a master power control champion. But there's so much more. Let's get into it. First things first, does he need to be awakened? Nah. His awaken ability basically adds a bit of degen every time you power drain or power burn a champion, and the amount is pretty minimal. However, it does refresh itself if the regen is continuous. So if you're ticking regen, he's causing degen. So as you can see here, King Groot is consistently regenning here, and we proc that degen 7 different times, and Warlock is a rank 3 5-star for this example, so his signature ability is giving him 474 damage on each one of those procs. And King Groot is heal blocked at the same time, so it's just pure damage. Now, while it's not necessary, it sure is nice to have. Now, if you only care about the next big damage champ, then this really isn't the champ for you. He's not about taking down Winter Soldier in 25 hits, but his utility and usefulness is through the roof. And he's an absolute blast to play with, as his animation work is impeccable, and his fight mechanics are smooth with beautifully executed special attacks. So what's this utility I keep harping on about? Well, let's go through the obvious ones first. He's triple immune: bleed, poison, and cold snap frostbite. I know that's really 4, but it's from the same thing, but I guess it could be 4. So we have a suicide-friendly Iceman killer here. He constantly has an armor up present at all times that blocks critical attacks from specials. Even if it's removed, he can bring it back within 10 seconds. And he's designated XL, so that makes him a candidate for variant 2. Next up is his heavy attack, and it drops a pretty nice bleed on the opponent, which is important, especially with these nodes that require a certain type of damage these days. And he straight stole that move from Wolverine. Now, the techno-organic transmode virus infection, try saying that 10 times fast. This happens through contact with Warlock in any form: attacking, hitting into block, receiving attacks, and the opponent hitting into your block. Each one of these adds a virus charge, and when that charge reaches 20, it will enact a passive infection charge that lasts for 20 seconds. You can also use well-timed blocks, aka parries, to gain 3 charges and reach the limit faster. However, if it's a projectile-based basic attack like you have with Havoc and Iron Man Infinity War, Ebony Maw, or Yondu, something like that, it instead power drains them while still gaining the virus charge. Now, if Warlock is awakened, this will activate a degen on top of that. Now, once infected, he automatically heal blocks, which is so good. Now, offensive ability accuracy is reduced by 30%. And as you can see, King Groot never actually procced poison because I never got the immune designation, which means it never happened. And also, even though this is a special, it's a projectile and I'm still able to put on virus charges. Now, infection charges can stack, thus stacking the effects as well, which brings up some pretty amazing results. And in the example here, you can see Human Torch was really only able to put one Incinerate out of all of those hits. Just don't take him up against heavily buffed champions, as each buff will decrease the duration of the infection by 6 seconds for each unique buff. So it'll be pretty difficult to get one, period, much less stack them. As you can see here, up against Venom, they're not even showing up. Now, Warlock's reachability is off the charts. He has the furthest reach of any champion in the game, and he makes sidestepping very easy. Now, many times you can even do a deep evade and still be able to counter. Now, Emma Frost, who is notoriously difficult to sidestep at times because her dash attack stops short just a little bit and usually most champions would miss. Warlock makes that super simple. Now, Nick Fury, who also stops short and leaves many people too far back to counter, is a walk in the park for Warlock. Now, he makes stun immune fights an absolute breeze. The only problem I had with sidesteps was with Iron Man Infinity War, to which was a little disappointing, but hey, we can always just power drain that dude anyway, just from the projectiles. So let's look at special attacks. First off, these are all amazing looking, so much fun to watch. Now, his SP1 deals shock damage over 10 seconds, and that happens on the last hit of the special, and it does a decent amount of damage. But if they're infected, it'll also trigger when the attack is activated, but only lasts half as long. However, the second shock lasts for the full 10 seconds. Now, when you activate this, it'll remove all infection passives and replace it with a power drain of 25% over 5 seconds per charge. That's an amazing amount of power drain right there. Now, the SP2 is a wacky looking special. It's straight up Animaniacs, but it's quite devastating. The last hit will place 2 armor break debuffs on the opponent. If they're infected though, these debuffs trigger when the attack is activated, but last half as long, which is fine because they're armor broken through the entire SP2 and it's a lot more powerful that way. And the last hit of the SP2 will refresh 1 infection. Now, this is just under 30,000 damage, but this is with class advantage, and I have Assassin, and I'm running Suicide Masteries, but it's still pretty impressive for a power drain champ. Now, the SP3 inflicts a passive power burn on the opponent, draining 100% of their current power over 5.5 seconds and dealing damage proportionate to the amount lost. So you definitely want to try to push your opponent to their full power bar when launching this. On top of all this, you regenerate a certain amount based on your rank for each infection on the opponent. But at the end of it, you don't remove any charges. As you can see, this works really nice. Now look, his power control game is ridiculous. You can literally just fight all the way through to SP3 without worry. And if you use suicides, you can always heal off of the SP3 to recover some of that recoil damage. Now, if all of that ain't enough, keep in mind, most people have willpower, and those people are in my favorite mode of the game, Alliance War. Take a look at how one is affected with willpower when infected. As you can see, this magic will never get a special attack, and she'll constantly power drain, and because of the SIG ability, she'll constantly be degened as well. This right here is a game changer. Because basically parrying is a debuff which activates the willpower, so every time you parry, you are going to be, at the very least, power draining, and if you're awakened and pretty high SIG, you're going to do some degen damage. Now, if you also remember, the SP2, if infected, automatically drops those armor breaks at the beginning, which means willpower will enact, and therefore power drain will be happening. Now let's talk synergies. Warlock alone is pretty great, but you can really propel him forward with his synergies, especially the magic synergy, which also has Sunspot. That generates 70% less power when using a special attack. That alone is huge. Now, Robot Uprising allows you to gain a 60% Fury buff if you receive a debuff you're already immune to. So, Caltrops, anybody? Now notice vision is on here. If you couple that with Cap Infinity War, your power control game hits a whole other level, as that drains all remaining power after the use of an opponent's special attack. That's pretty powerful. The only thing that struck me a little strange about it was a power drain, but it didn't activate the degen. So that was weird. Now, going viral with Cable basically gives you a 50-50 chance to gain an additional charge every time you place one. That is super important for building up infection charges pretty fast. Now, the mutant agenda is pretty standard. I personally replaced this one with the Cap Infinity War, as I mentioned earlier. So here's a little taste of what Warlock can do. He destroys Realm of Legend Wolverine, no heal, no problem. The much maligned Red Hulk with 1% constant healing and 100% poison damage from 6.1.5? Yep, that's also not a problem. He laughs in the face of the life cycle node in Act 6.2. Just look at all those regen attempts. It's not happening. Hyperion is a joke. Constant armor up makes Havoc a walk in the park, not to mention blocking the projectile's power drains him, making his charges absolutely moot. Thing can't stack charges if he's always losing them to the heavy bleed. Hate playing on masochism nodes? Not a problem. Notice that regeneration did not happen because he's infected, so that helps take the edge off a little bit, and you can just worry about not getting hit. Oh yeah, and also Buffet, and there's a whole bunch of other examples. I even started to scratch the surface of what he's capable of, but so far I've had a blast playing him, and I think he's an absolute must for anyone's roster. Especially with all these new nodes and modes coming out, it's nice to have a utility champ that can counter a lot of that mess. So anyway guys, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, go ahead and click subscribe, click like, leave a comment, share it with your friends, share it with your mama, all that stuff helps me out, and remember, stay dorky, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Potamus!
Contagious aging, yeah, and dime. Infectious to your soul. You can't